Okay, well, I'm going to get started and I just pressed record. So we should be all set. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Julie Longchamp and I am the Director of Professional Programs at Vermont NEA. So my role at Vermont NEA is to really support the professional aspirations of our members, which includes from for people that are on provisional licenses or pursuing education as aspiring educators to supporting them as well. So welcome tonight. We are here with people from the Agency of Education and from some of the licensing programs from around the state. And my professional practice and policy fellow is also here, and she's going to run the chat. So the way that I have organized tonight is to first do some quick introductions, then kind of really quick overview, 30,000 feet view of Vermont's online licensing system where sort of everything takes place. Talking a little bit about the praxis requirements and Vermont reciprocity, and then the different routes to licensure. So we have people from the Upper Valley Educators Institute, from some people, thank you, from the TAP program, from the Vermont Higher Ed Collaborative. They have special licensing programs that, and they would like to share what they can offer you on your path to licensure. But we know, and I really enjoyed reading everybody's stories. So I asked the question, what brings you to licensure? And the work that I've done in the past few years with licensure really tells me that, some of you have been certified in another state, others of you have done other things in your life and now have sort of found that passion that, yeah, I really want to make a difference and be a teacher. Others, worked as paraeducators and now really want to become licensed educators. So your paths are all different and so interesting. And I feel like you'll really benefit from, hearing what each program that we have in Vermont, each path to licensure has to offer. And then I encourage you to then reach out to those people personally to get even deeper information, if that makes sense. So just in the chat, if you want to, since there's too many of us to really do introductions, your professional goals and or reasons for attending this webinar. If you want to just put it in the chat, that will give those of us facilitating different parts of it an idea of who you are. And then if you could, actually, I can probably mute everybody. So feel free to just put, kind of what brings you to peer review very quickly, in a sentence. That would be great. Yes, a lot of you, there were several of you who had taught in independent schools and didn't need licensure, didn't need to be properly licensed, but you're experienced. Great. Some questions about peer review. We've got people on emergency licenses, which are one-year licenses. Great. All right, thank you. So you all got to this link, which means you all found the hub. I created a hub, and Ellen and Jill and Andrew and Kristen, if you want to put your, I'll actually just go to the hub. If you want to put your your information on this hub and your email, people can email you directly. That might be a good way to do it. So this hub you will have even after this workshop, and you can access the resources that are on this hub. I found that ever since moving online in March of 2020, having a central document to support trainings has been really helpful, especially when you want to, revisit it. So this is the hub. And again, you're welcome to use this even after the meeting, you have access to it. So first we wanted to talk about the Vermont's online licensing system. Most of you, if you have a provisional license, you have already you already have a registration and have logged into Alice, which is the online licensing system.
I didn't miss anything.
If you have not, that really is your first step. And you do that by going to the link is on the hub. The link is on the hub, and you'll go to initial user registration and follow the prompts. Also on the AOE website, there are a lot of different informational webinars and PDFs that document step by step. So they've done a really good job at trying to make that as easy as possible. But I know, if you have any questions, you can email me, you can email the Agency of Education. We can help you with that. But that is usually your first step. But if you're on a provisional license, you've already seen this. And by the way, if you want to search for an educator to see what your license is, you can click on this and search for yourself just to see when your license expires, things like that. So for many of you, and when I went through the sheet, there were several of you who wrote, the biggest, your biggest barrier right now is passing the praxis. As of now,
progress.
There is still a praxis requirement. I want to make sure that, can everyone please, when you come in, mute there. Great. There is a praxis requirements. The links are on the hub. But for most of you, passing your praxis is the first step to either applying for peer review or transcript review. Right now, the qualifying SAT score, even if it is really, really old, is 1100. If you took your SAT scores prior to a certain year, it might be a little different, but for most of us on this webinar, if you got 1100 on your SAT scores with a minimum of 500 in verbal and math, that would waive the praxis score, or an 18 in English and math on your ACTs, or GRE scores of 153 and 144 for verbal and quantitative, and 300 combined. Praxis 2, not every content area has a Praxis 2 requirement. For example, if you are, a lot of you are here for special education, there's not a Praxis 2 for special ed. But for the core support for Praxis, Khan Academy has, I put a link on the hub for the Khan Academy. They have a pre-test that you can utilize. Every once in a while, NEA last year had 2 different support classes for helping people pass the Praxis core. I also know that the state of Maryland, the Vermont NEA component, the Maryland Education Association, actually got a grant to pursue support groups and one-on-one tutoring. So I've been in touch with them, and they've shared a lot of their stuff. So check back with me. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we should have some sort of support for the Praxis core as well. But I would encourage you, as a first step to go through Khan Academy, and know, and Andrew, I don't know if you want to talk about this, that the Agency of Education is talking about the Praxis core requirement. I was talking to my counterpart in Maryland, and they said, like, if you have a 3.0 in your latest degree program, you are waived from the Praxis. We don't have that in Vermont. It would be, it is something that the Agency of Education is discussing at this point. Is that correct to say, Andrew?
Yeah, so basically the licensing board has directed us to explore what other states are doing, and we're kind of creating a grocery list of different options. So we're hoping sometime in the next few months we'll be able to present a few different proposals to the board. There's a lot of different directions it can go, but one of them really is looking at lots of different types of tests that people have taken for other careers and stuff. I think that's going to be one of the first things that we're going to look at. And then we're also definitely exploring lots of other options for additional supports for studying and stuff, which also a plug. Julie has been doing a lot of great work for people who need that extra support to get through the tests.
So it still is a requirement. Yeah, and also as we're going on, if you guys have questions, if you want to type it in the chat. So we'll kind of go to those questions as we're talking about it. So that is true. Andrew might correct me. One question is, did you say it didn't matter how old the GRE is? I have seen some pretty old SAT scores come through. So
Right.
You can get it through the archive and the scores meet the requirement, that will be fine. Ellen, did you have something else to share?
I just want to mention, one of the scores you can't get like after 5 years, so you can have those notarized. And sometimes they'll accept that. And I'll add, there's a resource called 240 Tutoring, Julie, which when you give me edit access, I'll add that to the resources. It does have a fee, but it's a very comprehensive study guide with modules. We're just now starting to experiment with it and having pretty good luck. So I will add that to the resources.
Okay, Ellen, I will make sure I thought I add, okay, I will add you as an editor so you can add to that. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll also add too, if you're having a hard time, a lot of folks have been having a hard time tracking down SAT scores through College Board. It's worth calling your high school and ask if they have the scores, so at least you can know what the score was, see if it's worth trying to pursue the official ones. And then, as Ellen said, if not, if all you have is some sort of unofficial looking document, you can always get that notarized.
So where can I find my very old SAT scores? I would go to the College Board website. I don't know. So 1983, that's, oh, great. So somebody had contacted their high school from 1983 and they had a copy of your SAT scores. Thank you, as per Andrew's recommendation. Great.
There was a question as to whether math interventionists require a praxis too. Would that depend on the position?
Yeah, so Linda, I saw that note. So right now, Vermont does not have a math interventionist license. We have a literacy coordinator. So you would have to, and I looked at your note, you would have to get you're a K-6, I believe, math interventionist. So you would have to get your K-6 elementary license for that to be properly certified. And that would require a praxis too in elementary. I also have had people, if they do the middle school math intervention, they've been working on their middle school endorsement for math. Any other questions before we go on? Okay, so many of you.
Juliet?
Yes.
On further on that praxis too, in elementary, I'm doing K through 4th grade. So that would be totally elementary, isn't that correct?
Correct. So you would
Okay.
get your elementary license.
Terrific, thank you.
So Vermont does, if there were several of you who have licenses in other states, we have reciprocity for almost all states except for New York, New Mexico, and South Dakota. I have worked with a couple of people through transcript review, and they have been able to do that successfully. So if you have a license from one of the, so it's the certifying agency is called NASDAQ, and that agreement is signed by all of the states. So you should be able to receive certification by completing the initial Vermont educator license application online. However, there are still little pieces like getting the praxis scores sent and getting your transcripts uploaded. So there are, it's not as easy as, showing your license. There are, you do have to upload. There is a little work to that besides just your educator license. And Andrew just wrote, all Vermont tests are now available as of last month. ETS will continue to offer online moving forward, which is great. And that's on Praxis too as well, Andrew?
Yeah, there were a couple holdouts, but yeah, I think the last one was health. And just last month. Now every Praxis Core and Praxis 2 used in Vermont is available.
Online.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So we're just going to quickly go through some of the routes and then we'll dig deeper into the certification because most of you do have a provisional license or an emergency license right now. So a traditional route is those of you that went through a traditional teacher education program in a college or either in Vermont or through school with reciprocity. If that is you, you need to log on to Alice and complete, the different requirements of Alice that you can find on the website. When you first achieve certification in Vermont, you're given a level 1 license, and that's good for 3 years. And then you will move from level 1 to a level 2 license. And you'll see on the AOE website, they have lots of flow charts for the different routes. So I would encourage you to kind of look and study that and reach out to us if you have questions on the different routes. But this is an example of a traditional route for somebody that went through a program either in state or out of state that has reciprocity. So some of you have, so if you were certified in New York State, and I've worked with several teachers, they do not have reciprocity. So these teachers have to go through transcript review to get certified. I have a couple of different examples. So you're given, once you're applied, you're given a worksheet. And what you have to do at that point is look at the requirements, look at the competencies, and align the courses that you've taken as an undergrad or in your teacher licensing program and coordinate them, align them with the different competencies. So it does take work. If there are some of you out there that would like to see an example, email me and I can show you some examples of how people have used the power of hyperlinks within Google Docs to make that really easy. It is really helpful if you're going through transcript review, even if it was a long time ago, that you try to get as many of the syllabi that kind of documents what was taught or what you learned in that class, what competencies you were identified as being achieved through that class. That is really helpful because the people at the agency then kind of make sure that it's apples to apples, that the coursework aligns with the expectations of Vermont certification. So there's a couple ways you can do that, but I'm be happy to help people set that up to make it as efficient as possible. Once that is done, then they will either deem you, to be certified, or there might be a competency or two that that you have not addressed, and you can either take a course or two, or then go through another route like peer review.
Is there a way you can look up online whether you have an emergency or a temporary license?
Yes. So back on the first page, if you go to the Vermont education.vermont.gov, go to the online licensing link. Actually, I'm going to show it to you. So go to education.vermont.gov. Scroll down to educator licensure and then online licensing. and then you can search for an educator. So Longchamp, Juliet, search. And you can see I'm very well certified. So it'll tell me my endorsements and when their expiration date is. So for you, it might be elementary and it'll say provisional. So I'm a professional license, level 2 license. It'll say provisional or it'll say emergency. Okay, and I'll put that link on the hub so you guys can just click it, or you can go to education.vermont.gov. So now we're going to dig into kind of nuts and bolts of some of the programs. And we have Kristen Downing from the Upper Valley Educators Institute on, I believe, right, Kristen?
Yeah, hi everyone.
Here. So you've got your slide. And if you have other slides, you're welcome to, introduce yourself and talk about your program.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Hi, Wally. We have a UVEI graduate here tonight, which is very exciting. My name is Kristen Downey. I'm the Director for Teacher Education Programs at UVEI. And we are a teacher preparation program, but we're also a graduate school of education. And we've been serving educators in the Vermont and New Hampshire region for over 50 years. I think that for those of you who are here tonight with either limited teaching experience, or perhaps you are interested in having an experience where you are getting coaching and feedback throughout the year in a supported program. We've had people who have been licensed, but they were out of the field for many years, or they wanted, some formal training, even though they had had a license in another state, or again, kind of a while ago. Our program is experiential. The majority of the work that you do is in a real setting, in a classroom. Most of our teaching candidates are in full-time internships, but we have quite a few people whose internship is their job. So we have people who are already hired to teach, but they need a license, or they are paraprofessionals, and with some discussions, and as long as the conditions are right, though, that can serve as a placement. We have several people this year actually who are long-term subs or para educators. We offer elementary endorsements as well as many secondary endorsements. And for those of you who are experienced educators and are interested in our new literacy program, happy to talk with anyone about that as well if you're interested in becoming a literacy educator. We are a New Hampshire program, but as Juliet said, New Hampshire has reciprocity with Vermont with that agreement that she mentioned. And so many of our educators get licenses in both states because we're located in Lebanon, New Hampshire. So happy to, take any questions now or later or in the chat. Juliet, I couldn't edit the hub, and I wasn't quite sure where I should put my email address, but I'll just put it right in the chat right now for anyone who's interested.
Yeah, and I'll after this is over, I'll make sure you have access to that. I have a question for you. If somebody is working full-time, is the coursework after school hours, or will they need to take days off to go to their class?
That's a great question. Our program has typically had seminars once a week in our Lebanon classroom. We've adjusted that a little bit based on the number of people who are being hired to teach without licensure. There's a lot of jobs out there and a lot of people. And so it's about, you'd have to be able to attend seminar once a week, about 2.5 days a month. So we cut that down from 4. And we've started to have sort of a combination of Zoom seminars on Tuesday and in-person seminars. I think people really appreciate that cohort that they have at UVEI during the year, and a lot of that Collaborative inquiry redo is just really great to do it in person, but we're really responding to, I think, the needs of the workforce and balancing a online class with in-person. So yes, you'd need to be able to take off about 2.5 days a month in order to participate in classes at UVEI.
Great. And I will say to people out there that I am sure if this was a program you were interested in, reach out to your administrators. You do have professional days, and many administrators would provide you with additional professional days to do something like this. So it's definitely worth asking your administrators, because it's, unlike peer review where you're sort of on your own and, I have a program that supports you, it's not giving you necessarily the coursework. So if you don't have background in education, thinking about UVEI, or if you're on that side, or the TAP program, which we're going to talk about after the upper Vermont Higher Ed Collaborative, if you're focusing on special ed or pre-K, it's definitely worth exploring. And when is your next cohort? Do you start one in January, or is it the beginning of the year?
We do not start mid-year, so the next cohort would begin in August of 2022. But I should also point out that on our website, we offer many of our inquiries. That's our word for our courses. We offer many of our inquiries as open enrollment. So if several of you are not interested in a full-time program, but you do need some coursework, we offer many of our inquiries that are teaching focused for 2 or 3 credits. And so if you go to the professional education link on our website, and I'll put it in the chat, there's quite a few of those inquiries that still have to happen this year, including deeper learning, analysis of student work, and those could be really helpful for just knowledge, or again, if you need coursework for licensure.
Or coursework, if you're considering pursuing peer review, and that is something that's a weaker, like let's say assessment is a weak topic for you, and you want to explore that in more depth, you can take the course, and then that work can be evidence for your peer review portfolio. Great. That's great, Kristen. I learned something new. Any other questions for Kristen? Okay, great. So now
I'd just like to make a comment. I mean, I found the program incredibly valuable, and that collaboration piece was really important. You're not just studying independently. You work with a group of people that are in a similar situation, and I found that really key to kind of support each other. So I recommend anybody that is looking at that to go for it.
thank you, Walter.
Thanks for the plug, Wally.
Okay, next we have Jill Wilcox. I think she is on, right?
It's Joy. Yes.
Joy Wilcox. I'm sorry, Joy. And Joy,
That's all right.
let me know when you want me to move the slide, since I'm controlling the slide. So why don't you introduce yourself and
Yeah.
your program.
So I'm Joy Wilcox. I work for the Vermont Higher Ed Collaborative, and I'm the director of the special ed program. So the Higher Ed Collaborative started 21 years ago as a direct result from the shortage of special educators in a state. And lo and behold, here we are 21 years later, and it's worse than ever. So it's just an ongoing problem. We have multiple programs, and I guess I would just say we're a homegrown program, and we are mostly for people who live here and who work here. And the expectation, if you join us, is that you're working in a school, and at least for the special ed, that you've been working in a school, and that you're working, and our courses are on the weekends usually, or a couple of hours in the evening. Right now, we're totally remote still. But in the past, we offer hybrid courses. So just like UVEI, some meetings together to get to know with your cohort, and then the rest of the course online. So we have 2 ROPA approved programs, which means we can recommend you for the license. Those are for people who already have a teaching license and want to become an early childhood educator or an early childhood special educator or school age special educator. So if you already have licensure, we can recommend you for endorsement after our program. Okay, do you want to move it? So these are the 2. Again, I don't run the early childhood. Manuela Fonseca does, and they have, it's 18 credits for the early childhood and 21 credits for early childhood special ed. The special ed one is 21 credits, which includes a 3-credit internship for the student teaching. And again, we recommend for licensure after that. You can go ahead. And then the final thing we have is the pathway to licensure programs. And we have 5 of them. We have the early childhood special ed, health educator, special ed, and work-based learning coordinator. And these are for folks who don't have a license. So our folks who go through these programs end up with Andrew at peer review. So they do the same program as the people who are in the endorsement program, the people who have a license. But if you're in the pathway, you're someone who maybe has been working as a para or change of careers. I talked to a gentleman today who has been a chef for years and really is interested in becoming a special educator. So that person would definitely be going through a pathway program versus the endorsement because he doesn't have the license. So you do the same program as our, all students are together, they're not separated. And then you would just go to peer review for the core teaching standards and to demonstrate what you've learned in the special ed program or other programs in the pathway. Okay.
Joy, I have a question for you. Can,
Mhm.
if a teacher on a provisional license who knows they're going to go through peer review and they've worked in schools for a long time, they have a great mentor, they're working as a special educator, but they know they have certain holes in their knowledge, can they just take certain courses or do you have to be in the program?
Nope, anybody can take the courses. The only course they can't take is the internship. We want to make sure that people who are doing our student teaching are people that we know have been trained appropriately. So any other course anybody can take. There are 3 graduate courses. All of the, I believe all of them now are going to be through Castleton.
Okay.
So, and we also have like our special ed program, Castleton will accept 18 of the credits. So if you want to go on for a master's, you are already halfway there, where most colleges will only accept 6, maybe 9 credits. So that we have an agreement with them that our students can take in 18 credits and potentially complete a master's.
Great.
So this is just what it looks like with the pathway, the 4 different things and the number of credits. Health educators 18, so is work-based learning, and the early childhood special ed and special ed are exactly the same as the endorsement, the ROPA programs. So those are the 4 programs we have right now. We also have a certificate program for neurodiversity, which used to be the autism program, but there is no endorsement for autism or so that is just a certificate program right now.
Great. Does anyone have any questions specifically for Joy Wilcox and the Vermont Higher Ed Collaborative? There was another question about the praxis, Jesse, around school counseling. Again, we're going to be The Agency of Education is talking about that right now. But I will say there are many, I've been in contact with 3 or 4 school counselors that want to go through peer review, and it might be good to get you all together, have a meeting with all of you, and we can talk about that. So I will, I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, and if I can also respond a little bit too, Jesse, definitely reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk through. One thing I do a lot for folks who don't have the testing, yeah, I will provide people with all of the resources they need to get started on their portfolio. So that way, once the testing is figured out, then you're ready to go before that provisional expires. So we can definitely figure something out.
I think if your certification ends in this coming June, that you'd want to start your portfolio now.
Yeah, we can reach out. We'll set up a meeting and get you going.
Okay.
Julia, can I just answer one question that was in the
Yes,
chat? Somebody asked about seeking an initial license with work-based learning. It is not for people, it is not just for people adding an endorsement. You also absolutely could do the program and then again head to peer review with Andrew. So
Right. And the
both-
nice thing
both
about
options.
that is when you do your competencies, when you have to document your competencies, you have all the coursework. So it will be really strong in the competencies for work-based learning courses
Yes.
when you do
Yeah,
it.
I think with work-based learning, you could actually apply directly through transcript review if you're taking the courses. I'm just finding out about your program. No choice.
But they
Right,
have to
if you have a license,
Right,
if you have a license, you can, but if you don't have a license, you can do peer review, right? So if you already have a license, you can apply through transcript review with the
Mhm.
courses.
Okay, yeah, because I think with work-based learning, that's one of the ones that you can do initial, because you don't have to meet the core. I'm pretty sure. We can take this offline though.
Yeah.
I'll do some homework on that.
I worked with Kim through peer review and she did the
I
core.
know, she did the core, I know.
Yeah. But let us know.
Yeah, I'll do some homework.
Okay. And now Ellen, I know she's here. I want to introduce Ellen to everybody from the TAP program.
Thank you, Juliet. My name is Ellen Emery. I'm the director of our TAP teacher apprenticeship program out of Champlain College. We are a similar program to UVEI. We have a cohort model, and our mission is really to attract and support and develop the most efficient, effective teachers and school leaders in Vermont. All of our candidates do an internship in Vermont, and we are we pride ourselves on being a teacher-led teacher training program. So 3 of us run the program, and we have 35 combined years of classroom teaching, 51 combined years of working with new and pre-service teachers, 9 years working at the Agency of Education with pre-service programs. We are involved in some statewide collaboration and leadership with the other Vermont educative prep programs. I think there's 14, not 13. We have school board representatives, teaching artists, and between the 3 of us, I'm also a rep on the Vermont Standards Board. And then between the 3 of us, Julie, you can keep clicking. We hold endorsements in high school math, Spanish, and English language learners, special education, theater, elementary, and national board certification. So that's just to reinforce that we are teachers running a teacher-run program. And so, Juliet, you can fast forward. So we can support candidates in middle, high school, and the K-12 specialty areas. I noticed a lot of you are special ed, which we do not do. Guidance counselor, we don't do. In elementary, we don't do. We are actually working with a lot of folks on a provisional license. As Julie said, your principals are happy for you to get some teacher training. And I'll go through some of the requirements. Julie, you can go to the next. So we have an 8-month internship at a local high school, close supervision and regular feedback. And once again, as UVEI and I think Joy mentioned at Vermont Higher Ed, we are also a cohort model. So right now we have 24 candidates across Vermont schools from Brattleboro up to St. Johnsbury. And so we meet twice a month until it's time for them to do their solo period, which is coming up. And we have 100 hours of experiential and interactive engaging learning. During those seminars, we touch base on our 6 core themes, which you can see on this spiral.
Ellen, is yours, it's 8 months. So do you one cohort a year, or do you, is there an overlap?
There's an overlap. So our fall cohort begins in August, and then they finish up in May. But our our spring cohort starts in December, and they finish up in August. They do, and it's an 18-week internship at a school near your home. And then we have our seminars, our biweekly seminars at Champlain College. So we come together every couple weeks.
So those people that are on provisional license and are working in schools, they can still be a part of your program. Their internship, though, is their job.
Yeah. So we have several candidates who will be with us in the spring who are working on a provisional license, but they don't have the necessary coursework or teacher training. And so, as I said, the schools are helping them pay for the program and supporting them to take those days to come to seminar to get that training. So we're really for folks who have their content area and they need training in how to become a teacher. So we like a GPA of 3.0, but it's not a deal breaker because some of us went to college a long time ago. We have a TAP online application, and that includes your unofficial transcripts, some recommendations, and a resume. And the total cost of our program is $11,900. And you can contact me for more information. We actually have an info session day after tomorrow on Zoom. So that's on our website. We usually do a Zoom info session every month, and then we do occasional live ones when we don't have COVID.
And I just want to remind everybody, if you're working in a school as part of your collective bargaining agreement, you do have professional development money. So some schools will offer the equivalent of up to 6 credits, some even 9 if you're in a program, and at the UVM rate. So that's going to be about 6,000 if it's 9 credits. And then there's also, loans through, VSAC that you can get to afford these programs.
Yeah, is there a slide on the next about, so funding, as Juliet said, we can help you defer your current student loans. VSAC, we're a non-degree, non-credit bearing program. So they have some non-degree grants and even more now with COVID. They also offer loans, private loans. There's a women's group called PEO International that has supported some of our candidates. A lot of our folks use their AmeriCorps stipend because they have been working for AmeriCorps. The Vermont Department of Labor has supported several of our candidates, and also veterans benefits. So even though it's not a traditional FAFSA funded federal loan program, there are some avenues to get some funding, including, as Juliet said, if you're on a provisional, you get some monies from your school.
Andrew, I think you should tell the state, the Agency of Education, that maybe some of the ESSER funds that are up there should be awarded to some people that want to become certified.
Our division did make that proposal.
And I just want to mention, I noticed some folks want to add an endorsement, and because they're teaching on a provisional license. We were just approved to, if you already have a license and you just want to add a license, then TAP can help you do that.
Great.
As well.
Okay. Any questions for Ellen? Again, Ellen, I'll make sure that you have access to the hub and you can put your information and they can email you regarding maybe you can put the webinar, the link to your webinar.
Sure.
Days for December, because that really would be a great if that's, if that's going to work for some people. Since it starts in December, that's really timely.
Yeah, I will say that right now we are in the process of placing folks. You folks are already placed, but folks are starting to receive some pre-service assignments, and we're starting to ramp up. So that would have to happen in the next few weeks for us to formalize that. And as I said, for example, next week I'm meeting with a principal with a teacher on a provisional license, and they're just anxious to help this person get licensed. And so they're going to go through TAP next semester. And, on the 2-year provisional, that gives some wiggle room. So it's a great option.
Great. Thank you so much. And Andrew.
Awesome.
You.
Yeah, so a lot of folks, they kind of ask that question is like, what is peer review, right? So basically peer review, it's an opportunity to present non-academic evidence for licensure. If you go through peer review, you're making the same Vermont licensing portfolio. It's basically a website, all the standards with a couple pieces of evidence and some writing. It's a super simplification, but we'll start there. So it's the same thing that everyone's doing in a traditional program, but it's just very independent. So as you're thinking through all of the different options tonight, other ones in the state and peer review, I always encourage people to ask these 2 questions. If you feel like you already have the skills to be a successful educator, peer review is a great route. I've seen in the comments folks who have previous experience teaching in college and independent schools, and you've already had a long career in education. Peer review is a great opportunity to really celebrate those experiences in a portfolio. If you're new to the field and you feel that you still need to build the skills, you can still be successful through peer review, but it's really important that you kind of stay on yourself. You have really good mentoring and support through your district, and really do explore different offerings through the traditional programs, even if it is just a couple courses. So I think that is something that's really important about peer review. There's about 300 or so people currently in the program, and then me trying to reply to all of your emails in a timely manner. It definitely is an independent process. And then the next slide. Perfect. So here's a general timeline. Really, you want to think about at least one full school year. I had someone, she completed her entire portfolio and everything in 4 months while working full time, and it was amazing. I will say she did go through the Vermont Higher Ed Collaborative, so she had a lot of a lot of support and a lot of the coursework and everything. But you can see some of these action items in here. Really, the biggest one I want to highlight is just the peer review clinic. On the peer review webpage, there's a registration. Once a month, I do a 2-hour clinic. That's actually what these slides are stolen from, where we go over the whole process. So you can register for one of those. I can't remember when the next one is. There was one last week. That's usually around the middle of the month. And if the time doesn't work for you, you should still register, because you can just watch a recording instead at your own pace. That's totally fine. You get credit for it. But you can see here, different parts of the application take some time. Ultimately, what happens is you make that portfolio, that website, like I said, and I coordinate 2 licensed teachers to review it, and then we interview you. So that interview process, it can take some time depending on what endorsement you are, which teachers I have on contract and stuff. So if you are going through peer review, you really want to work backwards, make sure you have all of your ducks in a row. I can go to the next one. So peer review is for both types of applications, those of you who are already licensed and you're adding an endorsement, and those of you who are not licensed going in for the first time. So the 2 big things, there's a lot of info on here. What I'll really focus on is the difference between the core teaching standard and then the endorsement competencies themselves. So the core teaching standards, there's 10 of them. For those of you without a license, that's the first half of your portfolio. The second half is going to be the endorsement or subject area. So science standards, special ed standards, etc. Initial applicants also have to demonstrate an equivalent of a 13-week field experience. Since you're all on provisional licenses, that will most likely check the box. You'll still need to address, show meeting all of the different standards, how you've been able to get good mentoring and feedback, etc. Little asterisks there, it gets a little bit, for anyone going for those endorsements at the bottom, it's a little bit switched. And of course, there is a work-based learning coordinator on here. So, so anyone in those endorsements at the bottom, easiest way to get a good description of exactly what you have to do is just to send me an email, and we'll go through that. If you're adding the endorsement, you don't have to do the 13 weeks. You just need to show the practicum requirements. For all of them, it's a 60-hour. Some have 2 60-hour requirements for the PK through 12, elementary ed, ECE. But again, you're on a provisional license, so getting those hours shouldn't be a problem. Next slide. So as I said, the portfolio, it's basically just a website. For each standard, you're going to provide some documentation, a couple pieces of evidence from your classroom, from your transcript, from professional development that you've done in the past, that really demonstrates that you meet that standard. And then there's some writing. The core teaching is kind of a long answer. There's some essays. The endorsement competencies are sort of a short answer, a little bit more of a paragraph. You can see that's an example of the paragraph short answer for an art teacher. So as I said earlier, once you're done with the portfolio, you submit it to me. I put it in front of 2 licensed teachers and they review it. They're the ones who go through, they score it, just like how the folks at the other ed prep programs will score portfolios. And once we have that score, what we do is we schedule an interview. It's usually about 2 hours in length, where we discuss the different aspects of your portfolio. Really, one of the big things that I've been working on is making sure that there's there's a sense of community. It's not, that your panelists are not gatekeepers. Really, our goal is to make sure that that you can be successful in your goals to get licensed. And the next slide, if I'm thinking it is, before I get into this, really ultimately the end result, if your panelists, what they'll do after the interview is they'll decide either you get your license or you have a little extra homework in a plan of action. So we'll identify which standards you need to develop some more, and we'll work with you. It could be anything from coursework to more mentoring.
I like to tell people that it's not pass or fail. It's a pass or not yet.
Exactly.
The not yet, you'll work with them.
Right. About 1/4 of folks end up with either a plan of action or needing to submit some additional evidence. And again, one of the things that I've really focused on is making sure that it's clear which standards are not fully met yet, and some specific recommendations from your panelists of what you should do in the next 18 months to meet those standards. If that doesn't work for you, you can always propose an alternative. And folks on provisional licenses, if that happens and now you're going past that, we have different supports. We can work with the district to make sure that you're able to renew your contract and stuff. So these here on the screen, these are the 10 core teaching standards I referenced. So just like if you're going through any of the traditional ed prep programs, you're addressing these in your initial application. For peer review, it's 2 pieces of evidence. Well, there's substandards, so I guess it's up to 4 pieces of evidence for each of these, and then 3 essays on the part 1, part 2, and part 3. And the next slide. I think this is the endorsement. So this is for music. So again, everyone going through peer review would need to address the endorsement competencies. Those of you who are already licensed only need to address the endorsement competencies. So same idea, each of those line items, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, you have 2 to 3 pieces of evidence. There's no long essays for this. This is kind of that short response, 1 to 2 paragraphs. And next slide. Perfect. So here's exactly. So this is what we were talking about. So as soon as the interview wraps up, we have you leave the call. I then talk to the panelists. I'll say, my first question is, are you ready to make the recommendation? And if it's a yes, we just kind of wrap things up. If it's a no, then I talk to them. Is it something that we can address with some evidence over the next 30 days? What do you need to see to make the recommendation? So again, we make sure it's really, really concrete. And you have up to 18 months if it's a plan of action. And the idea is I'll have this nice fancy document. So once you complete those requirements, you just submit that to me. There's no second interview. It's really just we make sure you've completed everything that you needed to complete. Sometimes there's some additional work that the panelists will review, but if you have done all the work as expected, there's no problems. And next slide. So those of you who are looking to apply for peer review, entrance into the program does require for you to have official transcripts, a resume, and the testing requirements met. Last year, because of COVID, when the tests weren't available, I waived that third one for a little while, but now that all tests are available, if you apply as of last week, actually, you have to have both Praxis Core and Praxis 2 in order for your application to be submitted. Again, like I said earlier, though, I'm more than happy to give you all of the resources so you can get started on your portfolio while you're studying and preparing for those exams. All right, and then next slide. And then here's a total breakdown of our fees. So there's the application fee for peer review. Peer review itself, the submission of your portfolio, it's only $1,200. Sounds like a bargain, but again, think of that ratio. There's 300 people in peer review. There's me. I meet with folks one-on-one. I reply to emails, but you're not getting any mentoring from me. You're not getting coursework. You're not getting counseling. It's really, peer review is reliant on your districts and yourself to be building those skills and those opportunities. The other nice thing about peer review, though, is it is kind of all tied together. So your application, your license application actually continues through, and well, technically peer review doesn't issue the license. Once you complete the process, you have a license. And next slide, I think maybe that was the last slide.
I think that is my slide.
Perfect.
So Andrew and I have worked together, and one of the things that I guess maybe a few years ago, I realized people had started emailing me about peer review, and I'm like, I was on the peer review advisory panel a long time ago. I was on, I've sat on panels, and so we developed a course through Vermont NEA and in partnership with Castleton to support you in, with regular classes through the peer review process. And this is probably our third year of doing this at Vermont NEA. So we offer the support that Andrew wishes he could, but can't with 300 people. And the nice things is if you are, if you feel like you have the skills and competencies to go through peer review, you're part of a cohort. You can either audit it or you can take it for credit or just for 45 hours for PD. If you take it for credit or for PD, since I teach the class, if you're a Vermont NEA member, since my salary comes from your membership, your dues, I can offer scholarships for the $1,200 fee. So on the hub for this class, I have also put a link to our peer review hub, which is going to start November 15th. There is a little pre-work. Again, if you have not passed the Praxis, you can't do some of this, but we would require you to send a note to Andrew and at least get the competencies for your content area so you can start the work. But the purpose of this class is to actually guide you through the creation of the portfolio. So we look at the first theme and we dissect the standards and we share resources, we give feedback on your writing. And people, what's nice is I've been able to do breakout groups for, like last year, I had 2 people that were doing physical education. So they would break out and talk about their competencies and share ideas for possible evidences, which was really helpful. So really it's like a support class, but also there's some instruction as well, but it gives you a cohort of people to work with and to brainstorm with. So I think the link to this is on the hub, but you can see some classes are just for initial candidates. And those classes are just focusing on the core teaching standards. Some classes are for both initial and candidates that are adding an endorsement. And what we do in those classes, we start with the endorsement competencies, and then those people will leave after, an hour and a half, and then we'll spend the rest of the time talking about looking at that first, the core teaching standards. So this class really was developed based on a need out in the field. So I'm not a program. I support, I can support people through the peer review process. And we've been doing a pretty good job too. And Andrew and I do a good job partnering, and that has been really helpful, I think, for candidates. We also offered a summer, just a totally audit class for people that wanted to jumpstart this summer. And that was really fun. They set up their portfolios. And so anyway, you can audit it if you're a Vermont NEA member. You don't have to take it for credit. And it's no cost, will help you as part of your association, help you get to that. No, it is not too late, John. We have, if you go to, I'll put the link in the web. If you go to my website, you can see the link to register, and you'll see there's a form that you can send to me. And if you want to audit, there's a line for audit. If you want to take it for credit through Castleton, you can do that. If you want to just take it for PD hours, you can do that as well. So with that is our last slide. So we can open it up to any other questions that you may have. And I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share the hub with Jill and people. Okay, so questions. And if you want to raise your hand, you can ask it. Or you can type it in the chat, and Megan can align that. We must have been really good. There are no questions.
There has been a question about the transcript review process. Who is a good person to contact about the transcript review process?
Andrew, who would you recommend? Kathy?
Yeah, for transcript review, you can always send me an email. I can forward it along. My coworker, Kathy Wilkins, it's just Catherine.Wilkins@vermont.gov, but you can email me, I'll forward. Looks like though it was the question was for art though. For an initial license, you would need to go through peer review. Transcript review, it's very limited in who can go through it. It's very nuanced.
There have been multiple questions too.
Okay, perfect.
One of the tricky parts with transcript review is you have to have that student teaching on your transcript.
Right.
If you haven't done the student teaching as part of a college program, then you're going to need to go through one of the other programs.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody just wanted to confirm test results can be substituted for Praxis Core.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, if they're qualifying, our test, there's a resource on the AOE website. It has a full breakdown of it depends on what year you took it and stuff, like when Julie was saying, but you can look through, again, call your high school if you have no idea, if you're kind of getting the runaround from a test takings, one of the companies there. So, but yeah.
And I also put that, I put a link to the PDF on the testing on the hub. So you should be able to access that, and it gives you the years of the SATs, and it breaks it down pretty well.
Andrew, what's your email address?
Yeah, so the best one, I'll just type it in here for everyone. There's two. I'll give you the one that goes directly to me though. So I'll type that in. It's just andrew.proughton@vermont.gov.
If somebody has specific questions about a GRE before 2011, what would you recommend?
Let's see. Maybe ask the question and I can make a recommendation.
Julie, do you want to?
Say that one more time.
Not you, Julie. The person who asked the question.
Or if you'd prefer to, you can send me an email with a specific question and I can look into it. I'm getting a lot of homework tonight.
I'm going to put a link to the specific testing requirements and exemptions in the chat. I'm just going to find it.
And Joy and Kristen, you now have access to, and Ellen, you have now access to the hub for this session. So you can, I'm putting your name if you want to put your email right next to that, people can get a hold of you. Any other questions? Have we answered all of them, Megan?
From what I've seen,
Okay. Okay. So with that, everybody, thank you so much for attending. We will get a copy of this webinar and I'll link it on my Vermont NEA webpage, and I'll also send it to our panelists for them to share out. Again, you can reach out to any one of us to discuss our specific programs. We just want to see you become level 1 educators in Vermont. And I wish you all the best of luck.
there
So-
is